Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to change a front brake caliper on this Ford F350 Super Duty. Be the same as the 250s and any Super Duty or Excursion. If this video is helpful, can you smash that thumbs up button and leave a comment down below for the YouTube algorithm? Really helps out a lot. First thing we're going to do is pop this cover off. Then we're going to crack our lug nuts loose. Now jack up the vehicle to get the wheel off the ground and remove the lug nuts. Now take your wheel off. Okay, now depending on if you're replacing only the caliper or the caliper and the bracket, you're going to remove different bolts depending on what you're going to do. If you're going to remove only the brake caliper and not the bracket, you will remove this bolt right here, which is a 17 millimeter, and this 17 millimeter bolt. But if you are going to remove the whole caliper and bracket, which is what I am going to do here, then you are going to remove this 21 millimeter bolt and this 21 millimeter bolt right here. Either way, you're going to end up prying this loose, regardless of whether you do the caliper only or the caliper and the bracket together. If you're doing the caliper only, then you're going to pry it off from the brake pads here, and the brake pads will stay in here. If you're taking the caliper and bracket off, the pads will come off with the assembly there. Before you remove these bolts or whatever, then you want to crack loose this nut right here and then tighten it back down a little bit once it starts to leak fluid. Now that we've got the caliper and bracket out here, we're going to remove the brake pads. If you plan on reusing your old brake pads, I will have links in the description to where you can get a new caliper assembly here and new pads, brake fluid, things that you'll need for this job. Those will be linked down in the description below. To get these out, you're just going to pinch them together like that and lift them out. There's little springs on the back that push them apart. And we will also need to remove our hardware here, these little clips. So just pry those out. They're on all four corners here. These clips come out really easy. You just push on these tabs right here and they come right out. Now this is optional, but I feel like it speeds up the process here because you don't lose all the fluid in your lines. I just clamp some vice grips onto the rubber hose here, and then we can finish removing this 14 millimeter bolt right here. You're going to lose some brake fluid out of here, but not a ton. Try not to let it run onto your rotor. Once you have that bolt out, you can break this block here with the hard line off from the caliper. Next, we want to take the copper washers off from both sides of this block. One of the washers stayed with the caliper here, and the other one from the top is still on there. So we're going to pry that copper washer off. Now we're going to put our brake hardware back onto the bracket here. These do go in a specific way. When you've got the caliper oriented in this position, you want this springy part to face up. We're going to put it into the bracket here, and then just push and pull it so that it sits flat right here on the surface. So you just want it to sit up tight. You do that to all four of these. Now these brake pads really should be replaced, but I didn't pick any up, so we're just going to use them for now. Hold them together like this and put the springs back in there, and then just set them back in there and let them and guide them into the grooves there. And you've got them in here, you're going to push up on this clip and then just push the pad down into the groove and guide it in there. Do that on both sides. Just work it in like that. Now take your bracket bolts here. I like to put a little anti-seize or grease on them before I put them back in. And then we are going to lift our caliper up here, set it back in place, and put our bolts back in. Now we're going to remove this bolt here and the two copper washers. We're going to put the block back up here and put one copper washer on the bottom and one copper washer on the top, and tighten this bolt back down nice and tight. The orientation of this hard line is important, so make sure you put it back in the correct way. Okay, you don't need to like He-Man this to the moon. If it ends up that while you're bleeding the brakes that you see a leak coming from here, you can tighten this up a little bit more. Now take off your vice grips here. Our bleeder screw is right here, so we are going to remove this rubber cap on here. There we go. This bleeder screw is a 10 millimeter, so you should use a 10 millimeter deep well 1/4 inch drive is what I'm going to use right here to crack that open, and we'll start the bleeding process. To bleed the brakes here, we are going to loosen this screw, and then you'll have a second person push down on the brake pedal, and that'll push fluid through here, and then they're going to hold the brake pedal down after they push it, and you're going to tighten the screw back up, and then you're going to repeat that process until you don't see any bubbles coming out of the bleeder screw right here. You need to make sure that your reservoir doesn't go empty, so you can see right there the line is right there about where my finger is. I would just make sure that it doesn't go below the seam right here. You need to use .3 brake fluid. I'll have that linked in the description below. We're going to crack this bleeder screw loose here. Now push down. So you see bubbles coming out of there. We're going to tighten this back up. Okay, let it up. Now we're going to crack it loose again. Okay, down. Still seeing bubbles there. Tighten it back up. Up. And can you start pushing the pedal a little bit slower? So now we're going to crack it loose again. Down. Still getting bubbles there. All right, now we've got a pretty steady stream. I'll show you. Down, slow. See, we got a solid stream of fluid. There's no bubbles coming out. It's looking pretty good. So now we're going to tighten it up. This doesn't have to be crazy tight. Now you want to make sure that you push out on your brakes and push your pads back in. Push them in until the pedal gets tight. So you can see there we're pushing our brake pads back in tight to the rotor. Keep going. Let it up and do it again. Keep doing it. One more time. There we go. Now we got our caliper and pads squeezing tight on the rotor. But that is pretty much all there is to it. Spray some brake cleaner on your rotor here to get any oils that are on there off. And then just test out your brakes slow. You don't go 60 miles an hour right up to a stop sign, cram on your brakes and find out they're not quite what they should be. So the thing you might want to do here is check the boots on your slide pins and make sure that they're in the grooves. Mine are not, so I'm gonna get those in the grooves. They do come pre-greased. You can see grease in there, so you don't need to do that if you get a whole bracket assembly. If you just do your caliper, you will want to pull these pins out before you put the caliper back on and put some slide pin grease, brake and caliper grease on these pins right here and make sure that they slide really easy. That makes sure your pads wear at the same rate on both sides. But other than that, that's all there is to this job. If this video is helpful, smash that thumbs up button. Leave a comment down below for the YouTube algorithm. Thank you for watching and have a good one.